I'm wondering if you think that continued growth in economic activity might show some sort of underlying fundamental that could flag another overheating. For example, the median projection in the March meeting for GDP growth for 2019 was 2.1. So I'm just kind of curious about what you see going forward if we continue to see strong GDP numbers.
Well, we don't see any evidence at all of overheating, for one thing. We see inflation below 2% now, as I mentioned, pretty close to 2% for most of last year. So really no signs of overheating. If you look at the labor market, for a long time now, there have been anecdotal reports of labor shortages and difficulty in finding skilled labor and that kind of thing. Nonetheless, you have very strong job creation, and you have wages moving up at a rate that is appropriate given inflation and given productivity, but not at all signaling any overheating at all. It's not higher than that rate that would incorporate both inflation and productivity. So really not seeing signs of overheating at the moment.
Okay, Heather, for the last question.
Are wages ever going to get back above 4% in this cycle? Can you kind of give us a read on, but more substantively, can you give us a read on how the committee views productivity growth, if it's accelerating enough?
Yeah, in terms of wages getting over 4%, wages have moved up pretty steadily over the last 5 years and are now, wages and benefits are now between 3 and 3.5%. Just for the last couple of years, the biggest part of the gains have come for people at the lowest end of compensation and education, which is kind of a welcome thing. You mentioned productivity. So productivity is really very difficult to predict. No one has been able to predict it successfully, so I won't really try. But I will say this. Productivity was very, very low in the wake of the crisis for 6 or 7 years. Last year, we had 1.9% productivity, which is much higher. I don't know if that level can be sustained, but we really, it's driven to some extent by technological developments and really the diffusion of technology through the economy, and it's very hard to predict. So I think it's positive. In fact, I'll mention, if we're talking about the supply side, labor force participation. Really, there has been a significant positive supply side development over the last year and a half between the uptick in labor force participation, which goes back, several years, but also productivity. And that does suggest more room to grow. It suggests a less tight economy, a less, maybe part of the explanation for lower inflation.